All right, we are back for episode 9 of the Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast. My name is Pat Burnham. I'm joined by my brother Shane. We got a special guest today, Justin Hokanson from auburnsports.com and On 3 Network. But before we bring Justin on, we do want to take time to thank our sponsors. The Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast is brought to you by Ascension Sports, where elite athletes arise above the noise, whether you're navigating NIL deals, building your personal brand, or preparing for the next level. Ascension Sports provides tailored consulting to help maximize every opportunity on and off the field, from recruiting insight to pre-draft prep and everything in between. Learn more at ascensionsportsconsulting.com. Again, that's Ascension Sports at ascensionsportsconsulting.com. We also want to thank Todd and Scott Harrell from Tallahassee Home Instead. At Home Instead, their adaptable care plans give you the confidence of personalized help that's with you throughout the day, even though we know there are plenty of things you still want to fly solo on, like finishing your crossword puzzle, trying Aqua Zumba, or watching baseball, or just hogging the remote. We'll provide companionship when you need it, a space when you don't, all with a smile from qualified, compassionate caregivers matched to you. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next at homeinsteadtally.com. Again, homeinsteadtally.com. And then we want to thank our friend Dan Mowry. Dan Mowry and the Mowry Law Firm. Dan and his team of lawyers bring over 50 years of experience with them and specialize in car and truck accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death cases. Dan and his team are based out of St. Augustine, Florida, and can be reached at 904-824-7799 or at MowryLaw.com. Again, Dan Mowry Law Firm. We want to thank everybody for their sponsorship. And now we're going to bring Justin on. Justin, welcome to the show, and thanks for putting up with a live read.
Oh, you're good, man. It was great. Killed it.
No, hey, we're trying. We're new at this. All right. So, Justin, first of all, we want to thank you for taking the time out. I know you're busy. Auburn's in practice. You got your own pod to do. So we'll get right into it. Obviously, my background is covering Florida State for the last 6 years. Shane's been a college football coach all over the place. So we do want to get into Hugh Freeze and the 2025 Tigers, but we do have some questions for you about what Florida State fans can expect from Gus Malzahn and Herb Hand, two guys you covered while they were with the Tigers.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think obviously the familiarity between those two is beneficial. Herb Hand was there. He was at Auburn 16 and 17, and Auburn had two really good rushing attacks that year. They had some quarterback issues at times in 16, but the middle of 16, that offense was rolling. Cameron Petway was there. Kerryon Johnson had got injured, and Cam Petway was there. And they were running the football. I mean, they got up to a top 10 team, and then quarterback got injured and got a little banged up, and they sort of floundered towards the end of that season. And then, of course, 17, I thought that was one of Auburn's better teams in a long time. It was a really complete team. The team that beat number 1 Georgia and number 1 Alabama back-to-back, and Kerryon Johnson was amazing. And so you had two really good rushing attacks when Herb Hand was there. So I think just those guys having worked together in the past is a big deal. I mean, there's an expectation on both sides, and they know Herb Hand knows what that line needs to do to make that offense successful and all that good stuff. So I think that's a good cohesion. In terms of Malzahn, it's kind of crazy that he's still rolling. I didn't get to watch him a ton at Central Florida. I mean, I didn't watch a bunch of their games. At times, I felt like they had some moments in some games that looked like a Malzahn offense, but the talent wasn't quite the same. They're trying to break into the Big 12, and so it wasn't maybe going to look exactly the same as maybe some of his offense did at Auburn. But I just like when he's rolling, he's rolling. This is what it felt like. When he was rolling, it was rolling. When he wasn't, it was like a disaster. There was no middle ground really. With Malzahn, it's kind of like that with Hugh Freeze. They're sort of similar, similar offenses, similar play callers, a little bit of tempo. And so like if he can get it rolling, I don't know what Florida State's offensive line is going to be like. That's a big deal. I mean, what happened at Auburn was the offensive line play kind of progressively got worse as Malzahn went on. He didn't recruit the offensive line well at all. It was probably his Achilles heel in the entire program. The offensive line it got less and less consistent as he went on at Auburn. And when it wasn't consistent and when they couldn't run the ball, you could forget about it. His offense, you have to run the ball. And so when Auburn got to the point where they couldn't run it consistently, it looked terrible. When you could run it, it would be, I mean, it could look like an absolute machine. You think back to what Auburn looked like in 2013, 2014, 17 with Carry-On, they could run the ball. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the Malzahn experience. The passing game is going to be pretty elementary. I mean, there was nothing super creative about the routes and the passing concepts and the route trees and stuff that he would run. It was fairly straightforward. A lot of it based on play action and running the football, and then being able to sort of play off of that. So, I mean, creative mind, good mind, particular, obviously really specific, detail oriented, but it's all going to be about, unless he, I mean, that's just kind of how he operates. And if the offensive line is good, you got a chance. If it's not, and you don't have a semblance of being able to run the ball, I don't know. I don't know what the quarterback. I guess Castellanos is there. I haven't watched a bunch of him. I don't know how. Is he like a big time dual threat, or is he just kind of mobile?
No, he's
go ahead, Shane.
a big time dual threat. Yeah, extremely mobile. We defended him when I was at Florida State, and he was at Boston College. He ran for, over 100 on our 23 defense, which was a really good team. So does a good job. I'm interested to see how Gus will use him. I think as we talked about Gus, everybody talks about quarterback run game. I'm curious how that evolved. I know last year R.J. Harvey at UCF, but how did that evolve over time? Are we wrong in thinking that this is what he wants in Castellanos? This is the kind of guy he's after. Where did it go to towards the end of his time at Auburn?
Well, I mean, to Malzahn's credit, I mean, he will adapt. I mean, if you get into the season and, I think you go all the way back to Cam at Auburn, the beginning of that season, the offense did not look like the way it did at the end. Even 2013 Auburn with Nick Marshall and Trey Mason, the beginning didn't look like the end, in that you started the season, you get a few games in, and then he's like, okay, hold on. Cam can carry the load. Like, let's shift this thing, and we're just going to run people to death. Same thing happened in 13. You realized that you had Nick Marshall, who was an unbelievable instinctual quarterback in the RPO game, and it morphed into just, I mean, you're talking about a team that led the entire country in rushing in the SEC. That is a crazy thing to do in 2013. So 17 too. I mean, 2017, they started off the year and they were trying to be a little bit too – Chip Lindsey was the OC, but obviously Malzahn had his hand in everything. Started that year trying to be really aggressive in the passing game and stuff, went to Clemson, lost a close game at Clemson, and then they realized again, I got Kerryon Johnson back here. I've got a pretty good offensive line. Let's get back to running the ball, play action, and not be quite as aggressive and trying to go downfield all the time. And he shifted. It's like, I think about three of the better offenses that Malzahn was in charge of at Auburn, and there was adapting a few games in to realizing, like, okay, and then it kind of took off. Even 2016, same thing. Kerryon got hurt. They kind of piddled around. If you go back and look at that year, 2016, middle of the year, they realized they got Cameron Petway, who's a bruiser, and they just started running the ball, and they were pounding folks. So he shows the ability to adapt if, like, the personnel's there. So if Castellanos gets out there and he's like, this dude's big, physical, he can take hits all day. If you've got a decent line and if you have another running back to pair with him, then you feel like you could run him 15 times a game if he wants to do that. I don't know kind of what the offense that I don't know if he'll just be a quarterback run game or whatever he wants to do. So he'll adapt depending on those first few games. If there's some things they do well, he'll adapt really well. But again, it goes back to that O-line, and when his offenses could not run the ball, it it was a mess, man. It was a mess. You got to be able to run the ball with what he does.
I got a question for you, and obviously, dynamics of this situation at Florida State, where Gus is coming from being a head coach now a coordinator. He's not the guy anymore. All football. I don't mean this in a negative way. I've never met a football coach that didn't have an ego, right?
Yeah.
But he's going from being the guy to now working for the guy. How do you know a little bit about his personality? You've covered him. How do you think that is he a guy that will blend into being the OC and not being the head coach? I mean, obviously he's the head coach of the offense. I mean, he's calling the plays for Mike this year, at least to start the season. It wouldn't be the first time a head coach said, "Hey, I'm gonna get back involved in this." But how do you see that working out?
I think it'll be fine. I mean, my instincts would say it'll be fine. I mean, Gus is a quality dude. He's a quality human being. I don't really think. I mean, certainly they all have an ego, but trying to remember. I mean, my gosh, he was a head coach at Auburn to UCF. I mean, I guess so. We got to go back to
2013, right?
10. I mean, he was 13. He was the head coach. I mean,
that's right.
12. Let's see. He left. I mean, you got to go back to. I can't remember. I can't even remember when he left Auburn. You're talking about going back well over a decade when he was just an OC. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, it's kind of interesting. Like if he goes back to just being the OC, what does it look like? Does he, does he change anything? Does he just do what he always does? But in terms of personality, no. I mean, at this point, think about it. I mean, he was head coach at Auburn for a long time, almost won a national championship, won an SEC title. Like he accomplished a lot. And so in his mind, I mean, he's made a lot of money, got a great buyout at Auburn. I mean, so I don't know what else he has to prove. I don't think he's walking out there thinking, there's going to be some clash with Norvell. I mean, unless to me, it would almost be like Norvell would have to create that. I mean, I don't think Malzahn's out there like, I'm trying to be a head coach one day, like stay off my back and let me run this thing. I mean, he certainly might if Norvell's trying to micromanage. I could certainly see Gus going, I've done this for a while. I mean, you hired me for a reason, Right. But I don't think Gus feels like he's got anything to prove at this point.
All right. Hey, let's jump into Auburn 2025 and Hugh Freeze. I know Shane's got some questions. I've got some questions. Obviously, a big year for the program coming off, I guess, what's been a disappointing start to the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn, and a lot was expected of him when he came in. He's known as obviously had a very successful track record at Ole Miss and got Liberty going really well. And 11-14 over 2 years. Going into year 3, made some interesting comments earlier in the summer about, hey, progress would be getting to a bowl game. I don't think that went over well with the people that he was talking to, nor the Auburn fan base. So tell us a little bit about what's going on at Auburn, what the issues have been since he took over the program and where it's going in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, he's under a lot of pressure. There's no doubt. And that answer that he gave was it was a golf tournament, maybe it was June, maybe early June. I can't remember. It was a couple months ago. It was a terrible answer. And I even jumped on it on X, like what are we doing with this answer, which is basically like, do you feel pressure this year? Kind of what are your expectations? And he kind of was like, well, I think for sure a bowl game. And the way he said it, you're like, first of all, you think, and second of all, how could you just mention a bar that you set in year 1, in year 3? That was a crazy thing to say. To his credit, since then, he has absolutely said the right thing. Since then, I think he maybe realized, okay, I actually think we're going to be better than that, and that was a little bit of a soft answer. Like that was weak. I think he thinks that they're going to be better than that, and so I think he's matched his rhetoric certainly to where fans are, all the way to the point where media days he says we have every expectation to be a really good football team, and we need to be in the playoff discussion, which this team absolutely could. I mean, if you're in the SEC, if you're flirting with 9-3, you're in the playoff discussion. I mean that's all he means by that. I mean if you're 9-3 in the SEC, you're going to be in the discussion. So it's not like that's a crazy statement. If they're sitting there 8-3, with a game left there in the discussion. So I think he's ramped the rhetoric back up to where it needs to be. And he might as well, because the fans are thinking fans are I think the majority of fans are 8-4 like that. They need to see 8-4 or better. So you might as well just align yourself with the fans, because you're not going to bring them down to your level. So you might as well just don't try to play that game of going, well, we're not quite there. And I think we're past that. He's got a good roster. He's recruited well. There's some really good talent there. I think this Auburn team's got the pieces to go 9-3. They really do. They could go 7-5 too. I don't know. I mean, 6-6 would be, could it happen? I guess, but boy, that's like losing every game. That's like losing all the toss-ups. It could happen, but that would shock me. I sort of think they won't. I don't think they'll be worse than 7-5, 9-3, 8-4 for me is where they need to be. 8-4 and 4-4 in the league. To me, anything below that, and what you have is a situation of what did you accomplish? To me, you got to take a step forward. And 7-5 or 3-5 in the league, nothing about that says step forward. Nothing. And I know the fans don't want that. The boosters don't want that. Basically, the boosters want either show me unequivocally that you're the guy, or show me unequivocally you're not the guy. Like, that's where we're at. No more. They don't need another year in the middle where you go, like last year, where you go, golly, Auburn went 5-7 last year, but Cal, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, literally a play or two goes differently and they win them. You can't have another year like that where you can kind of go back over the season and go, well, the record wasn't great, but there were 4 games that went. You can't be another year like that.
Now, a lot of the issues last year. Go ahead, Shane.
No, I agree. Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah, I was just under promise. I was just going to say, last year it seemed like a lot of the blame for that season was thrown at Peyton Thorne and the other quarterback's feet. Was it that simple, or were the holes in last year's roster bigger than that? And have they corrected that? It sounds like they have, based on you saying potentially 9-3 season. But are they that much better than they were last year?
I think so, and yet yes. Too much was thrown at Peyton Thorne's feet. Peyton Thorne had his limitations. Didn't have the strongest arm. Was a decent decision maker, but at times could make the wrong decisions. Certainly, was mobile. He made some plays with his feet, but he had some limitations. But if you go back and look at Peyton Thorne's stats last year, if I went right now and just told you his stats, you'd be like, well, that doesn't really line up with everybody making him the scapegoat. That kind of doesn't make any sense. He had, I don't remember off the top of my head, but go back and look at him. If just for anybody watching, go look at Peyton Thorne's stats last year, and you would go, but I thought they said he was terrible. Those stats don't line up. So it wasn't all him. There was, the O-line didn't always play well. Defense was pretty good. The issues were on offense, and the issues were just consistency, and it was always something. It was timely turnover. It was bad timing and turnovers. It was lack of execution and missed blocks and giving up a sack. It was a poor play call on a third down. It was just everything. It was execution. It was preparation, where you'd have a critical down in a game, and the way it was executed, or maybe a play call, points you back to the week of practice, and you're like, that don't even look like that's good preparation. It was just, I think it was a lot of that. That's kind of my one reservation going into this year is Jackson Arnold, I think, has got a lot of ability. He's a good fit. Certainly there's some really good talent at receiver. The O-line is better. You got 2 guys on there that'll go, I think, early in the NFL draft with Xavier Chaplin and Connor Lew and some other guys. But I go back to, with Freeze, there is just, I don't know, there is an inconsistency the last 2 years in the operation of the offense, in whether it's critical plays or turnovers. It's not it hasn't just been talent. It's been talent at some positions, but it's also been what kind of looks like sometimes bad coaching or bad preparation. And so that's what I want to see. I got to see a little more consistency in what they're doing offensively beyond just talent. The talent's there, I think, to be pretty good, but Freeze still makes me a little nervous in terms of, like, I think there's times where details fall through the crack with him during the week, and it shows up on Saturday sometimes. And so I want to see that cleaned up a little bit.
I thought it was interesting how he handled the quarterback, and I didn't watch as many games. I've heard the narrative. I go back. I think how you handle some of those situations in the season, and whether it's reaction on the sideline to the kid, the interaction between the two kids on the sideline, but between the kid and Hugh. Anyways, I think some of the times I think Hugh brings that upon himself. Me just watching on TV at what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Peyton's numbers last year. He threw for 2,700 yards. He completed 63% of his passes, 21 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. If I told you that, you'd be like, I mean, what's wrong with that? Like, that's right. 2,700 yards, 63%, 21 and 9, and maybe 400-ish rushing yards, 300 rushing yards, and you're going, I mean, that's not, you're not winning the Heisman, but that's not a 5-7 quarterback. Something's missing here. And so, which it kind of was. I mean, it was terrible timing in a pick against Oklahoma. Terrible, 4 interceptions against Cal, which three were on the receivers. Literally, were not even his fault. It was stuff like that where you look at the numbers and some of the stats of Auburn, and then you look at the record, and it doesn't add up because of absolute just worst time of making a mistake, a penalty, a turnover. It's the kind of things that on one hand you can go, boy, if we just clean those up, we're 9 wins. But it's also something where you could go, but will it be cleaned up? You can't just say if we just clean it up, if there's something systemic or if there's an issue in coaching, it doesn't mean automatically it just gets cleaned up.
I thought even the Georgia game, when he goes back and he pulls that ball or didn't pull it, whatever happened. Hey, look, if I'm the coach, I go to the mic and I say, look, that's on me. I put him in a bad situation. I don't, because I think he did. I think, honestly, that was a nice call by Georgia to create some conflict for the kid. But I don't know how he handled it. I feel like that's not how it was handled. I think those things create extra pressure for a kid. Anyways, sounds like maybe that Peyton wasn't the problem that we thought he was. But again, I think the way you handle those kids and the narrative it paints.
Mm-hmm. The defense has kind of was a strong suit last year for this team. You come back, you got Kendrick Faulk back, who will probably be top pick in the draft coming out this year. Yeah. He flirted with Florida State for a while, buddy.
When he signed, I called a mutual friend, Collins McNeil, and said, "Man, you are gonna love this kid just as a human being. He's unbelievable as a human, and then he's just freaky, and he's turned into all that." And his little brother, JJ, is he with you guys as well?
Yeah. He's a freshman.
I love the family. Love the whole family.
He's a good. Yeah, you're right. He's a good kid.
You got 5 DBs, I think, returning that had starting experience last year. If they started at least part of the season, if not all the season, how good can this defense be in 2025? And is it good? I mean, the early schedule's pretty easy. First 3 games anyway. I want to talk to you about the Baylor game because I think that's vitally important to the fan base. Maybe not so much overall the season, but you got a chance to go 3-0 out of the gate with Baylor, Ball State, South Alabama. How good can the defense be? And I know you're on a short time, and how important is that Baylor game? Maybe not to the whole season because as you talked about earlier, we know one loss does not a season make anymore with how these conferences are more parity and the 12-team playoff. But just talk a little bit about the defense and that Baylor game for us.
Yeah, I think I trust DJ Durkin. That's where I would start. I think DJ Durkin's really good and really organized, and he's been a good defensive coordinator at multiple places. So I trust him. I think the defense has got a chance. I mean, Keldrick Faulk's a great place to start. You've got some pretty good corners. Kay and Lee's back. Jay Crawford was an all-freshman SEC. Caleb Harris was an all-freshman safety. You've got some ability there. They're a little at the linebacker and the interior defensive line. There's just some stuff that needs to be proven there. But I think the defense could be an overlooked part of this team. Everybody's talking about what will Jackson Arnold look like? What about Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton? And will the offense sort of find their stride? And all those are good questions and fine things to talk about. The defense could be the X factor with this team in the difference in them finishing 10th and 6th or 5th or something. I think the defense has got they've got the potential to be a really good unit. There's just some pieces and some guys that haven't been significant playmakers that will need to be. Whether it's DeMarcus Riddick at linebacker, who had a pretty good freshman season last year, but it was as a backup. Now he's got to be the man. You got Xavier Atkins, a transfer from LSU, a lot of potential, but it's all unproven. And then you've got guys, like I mentioned, the interior defensive line, defensive tackles, where there's bodies, there's talent, but there's no stud yet. Not one of those guys has been the man for a season. So it'll be like a bunch of guys rotating, and that'll be sort of their strategy is what can we get out of rotating 6 to 7? Can we get a collective? It's like Moneyball. What can we just put those together to make a really good unit? So like if linebacker, interior defensive line come together, defense has got a chance to be a top half unit or a top third unit in the league, I think, and which could just could go a long way in helping this team. And you talk about Baylor, like the Baylor game's big, but I also think Freeze and where this program's at, the next game is the biggest game. Like, so yeah, Baylor's big,
right? But
if they beat Baylor and then lose to OU, well, now the A&M game is huge.
Right.
I mean, so I don't put as much on the Baylor game as maybe some people, simply because it's not a conference game. If they lose that game, first game out with a new quarterback and stuff like that, and lose a close game on the road to a team that some people think can win the Big 12, is that the end of the world? Right. Then, I mean, to me, the at OU and at A&M, like those two games are huge because, yes, it depends. If you lose to Baylor and then you could be 2-3 and be a good team. You could lose at Baylor, at OU, and at A&M and go, well, like, we're still a good team. I mean, a lot of teams might have lost those three. Their first 3 big games are those 3 all on the road before they come home and play Georgia. So the Georgia game at home makes a situation, though, where they really, really would like to split one of OU or A&M. If you're going into Georgia and you're 0-2 in the league, I mean, you got to pull a pretty big upset. Otherwise, you're 0-3 in the league. And now when we talk about making strides, I mean, you got to start by making strides in your own conference. And if you're 0-3 in the league, finishing 4-4 now becomes like no room for error at all. So I think the Baylor game's big because it's the first one. It could give the team a lot of confidence. But I look more to the first two conference games at OU and at Texas A&M. And it's like, do they, really got to get one. I mean, I don't like saying must wins that early in the year, but like one of those, man, if you get one of those, you really kind of need to get one of those, I think, to make sure that you're still on track.
All right, quick question for you. You probably know Alabama because that state, we're from Alabama. We understand the craziness that football is in that state. Half our family's Auburn, half of the family from Alabama is Alabama folks. Florida State opens with Alabama. What kind of team are Florida State fans are going to see in that game? And do you care to venture a pick in that game? Are you going to take Florida State or Alabama?
I'm so enamored with Auburn and focusing on them. I don't know what kind of team Florida State has. To me, Bama, it's all about Ty Simpson. Like, it's just, that's the unknown. They seem to be pretty loaded across the board, to the point where you're just going, how good is Ty Simpson? And like the answer to that question will tell you how good Alabama's going to be. I mean, they seem to have the type of NFL talent and impact players everywhere else. That they're going to have ballers on defense. So it's like, is Ty Simpson going to be good? If he is, then they're going to go 10-2, or 11-1 maybe. I don't know. If he's not, then he's not. I don't know I don't know where Florida State's going to be. What defensively, can you come out and get after him game one? Can you maybe get him on his heels a little bit? But with Alabama, it seems to all be around Ty Simpson. Like, I don't really hear any question marks about that team other than what does Ty Simpson look like? And the answer to that question will tell you, if Alabama is national title or if they're 9-3 again.
You got a surprise team in the SEC this year you think could maybe shake things up at the top of the conference race and maybe make a run at the SEC championship game, or you think it's going to be pretty much chalk?
I don't know. I was looking at this yesterday because I looked at On3 put up their, I guess it was ESPN put up their power rankings. And I'm looking at it, and it's kind of the first time I've looked at the rankings and gone, outside of maybe Mississippi State's going to struggle, right? Like Kentucky, we don't know. But it is as balanced of a league as I've seen in a long time. I mean, Auburn right now is 12th in their power rankings. I'm telling you right now, Auburn could go 9-3. I mean, the top 12, I mean, you could – Arkansas with Taylon Green. You catch Taylon Green on a bad day, that dude will beat you. The top 12, 13 teams in the league, it's as balanced as I've seen where there is absolutely no surefire anything. I mean, obviously Texas has got players all over the place, Georgia, Bama, like every position they've got NFL talent. LSU is going to be really good. A sleeper, I mean, you could a lot of people like Oklahoma. If John Mateer is what everybody thinks he is, which is the portal guy, you love Oklahoma. Their defense is supposed to be pretty good. Jaden Ott, 2 years, has got a lot of ability. Deion Burks, if he stays healthy, there's a lot to like about Oklahoma. I would say sort of in the middle of that league. Florida, I don't know that Florida would be a surprise because there's so much expectation on DJ Lagway that I don't know that you could even. I don't know that. Like if they go 9-3, you'd be like, well, yeah, Lagway's supposed to be, So I would lean more surprise. I'd lean more Oklahoma, Auburn, even Carolina, Lenore Sellers. There's so much expectation with him. I think if you're looking for like an actual surprise team, it's Oklahoma or Auburn, to where like they're kind of 10th right now and they could finish 5th, or 4th.
Yeah, I think it's as wide open as it's been in quite some time in the SEC, and I think I agree with you. I think any one of 6 or 7 teams could probably win the conference, and I think you could see a 10-2 team or 9-3 team be conference champion just because of they're going to kill each other on any given Saturday. Couple of quick questions: where do you land on the 8 or 9 conference games? SEC, Big Ten. Do you have any take on that? And then where can people go to get your content?
On the 8 or 9, I'm gonna be honest with you. I quite literally do not care. I'm so over. Like I try to get on the NIL stuff, and I talk to people at Auburn because I want to know how Auburn's approaching it. So I talk to administrators and go how it. But outside of that, I'm like, just let me know when you guys got it figured out. I don't have the brain power to keep up with this every day, like 8 or 9 or NIL. Let me know when you guys got it figured out. You don't right now. It's an absolute cluster. But when you do, just tell me the rules so I can deal with it. So I don't know. 9 would be cool. Would be fun. I mean, that's 9 guaranteed league games. I guess that's more fun than dealing with, Mercer and South Alabama and New Mexico and and those games are stupid. So I guess it gives you that one extra league game, which is fun for fans. So I guess I'd go 9. And then appreciate you mentioning our site. So I'm sure people saw that On3 bought Rivals recently. So we're at auburnsports.com, which is now, so the Rivals Auburn and the On3 Auburn have merged. So we're just one massive Auburn site now. So you can go to auburnsports.com. Even if you go to auburnlive.com, which is what we used to be, that'll still take you to the same place. But it's the Auburn On3 site, and we're really happy to be there and covering it. So. All
right, Justin. Well, man, we took up more of your time than you had. We appreciate you being patient with us, and we hope to check back in with you at some point during the season. And anything we can do for you, please let us know. But enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to catching up with you during the season, my man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was Justin Hokanson from auburnsports.com. Giving us some inside information on what Florida State's getting from Gus Malzahn and Herb Hand, and then seeing what he thinks about Hugh Freeze and the 2025 Tigers as they getting ready to open the season with Baylor in a crucial season for Hugh Freeze. All right, so we got a couple more things we want to talk about, but we do want to thank our sponsors again. We could not do this without them, and the Burnham Brothers College Football Podcast is brought to you by Ascension Sports, where elite athletes rise above the noise. Whether you're navigating NIL deals, building your personal brand, or preparing for the next level, Ascension Sports provides tailored consulting to help maximize every opportunity on and off the field, from recruiting insight to pre-draft prep and everything in between. Learn more at extensionsportsconsulting.com, because your rise starts here. We also want to thank Todd and Scott Harrell from Home Instead of Tallahassee. At Home Instead, their adaptable care plans give you the confidence of personalized help that's with you throughout your day. Even though we know there are plenty of things you still want to fly solo on, like finishing your crossword puzzle, trying Aqua Zumba, or watching baseball, or just hogging the remote, we'll provide companionship when you need it and add space when you don't, all with a smile from qualified, compassionate caregivers matched to you. Visit Home Instead online for a better what's next at homeinsteadtally.com. Again, Home Instead Tallahassee at homeinsteadtally.com. We also want to thank Dan Mowry and the Mowry Law Firm. At the Mowry Law Firm, Dan Mowry and his team of lawyers bring over 50 years of experience with them and specialize in car and truck accidents, premises liability, and wrongful death cases. Dan and his team are based out of St. Augustine, Florida, and can be reached at 904-824-7799 or at MowryLaw.com. Again, the Mowry Law Firm, 904-824-7799 or at MowryLaw.com. All right, want to thank those guys for their continued sponsorship. Shane, what do you think about what Justin had to say about Gus and Florida State, and also what were your takeaways on what he had to say about the 2025 Tigers and Hugh Freeze?
He sounded a little more optimistic about the Tigers than maybe I would have expected, but I have been hearing that, that narrative, if the quarterback play is fixed, DJ Durkin, that side of the ball played well last year. But again, I agree. There's no point in under promise, over deliver. It's year 3. There's big expectations. They've really done a great job being aggressive in their NIL push. So I think they need to have that kind of season, but I don't know if they're going to be able to. And then when it comes to Gus and Herb, certainly makes a lot of sense. They've worked together, both at Auburn and at UCF, and that should go smoothly. Terminology, just, how they think in certain situational football. And they have. I mean, you go back and look at the numbers. I think if you take outside of maybe, there might be an outlier here or there, go back and track Gus's offenses all the way back to his time when he first became the head coach at Auburn. And there's very few where he was outside of the top 50 or so in the country. He just they have a track record, and Herb will help them, get there faster.
Yeah, when I look at their schedule, all right, so they were average team in the SEC last year, maybe even a little bit below average. When I look at that schedule, let's just say they split the SEC schedule, 4 wins versus 4 losses, all right? I think that's an easy formula you could use for just about every team in the league, right? Most of the teams are in the middle. You don't have a lot of teams on the top end or bottom end. Most teams, just because of the way the toughness of their schedule. So I look at it as, let's say they split SEC 4-4. Well, you should get Ball State, you should get South Alabama, you should get Mercer. So that gets you to 7. So to me, that Baylor game is huge because that gets you to 8. Now, obviously, they're going to be underdogs to A&M, I would think. Georgia, Alabama for sure, Oklahoma, Missouri, Kentucky, Arkansas probably 50-50. So I think they're a 7 or 8 win team. What do you think?
Well, I could be. I look at the first 6 and I wonder if you don't get off to the start you want, does the noise become so much in these kids' ears? Does that avalanche of negativity start to affect the team, which can happen sometimes? So I'm curious, I think the start affects the finish. You don't always finish the way you start, but, with the situation they're in. But you can see it. They have been one of the most aggressive teams in the country in NIL. I mean, they have weaponized that, and they went and have acquired a really talented roster, in my opinion.
All right. Well, it's going to be fun to see what they do, and we'll check back in with Justin throughout the season and hope to have him back on to tell us a little bit about what's going on with Auburn at some point once they kick the season off, and hopefully get him back on before they open up their SEC schedule. Look, some other things that were making the rounds on social media yesterday, Shane. This is kind of our out of bounds, behind the chains, whatever you want to call it. Diego Pavia, who's obviously a really confident kid, the quarterback at Vandy, goes on Paul Feinbaum's show yesterday or the day before. I saw it on Twitter. And, Paul's asking him about expectations for Vandy this season and what he thinks they can do. And basically he said that their goal is a national title, that they want to get to the college football playoff and win the national title. He said that is the standard. I'm not sure I agree with him. You're coming off a 6-6 regular season, which was treated like it was a 10-2 season. Maybe it should be. Maybe that should be the standard at Vandy is 6-6, 8-4. Again, it's talk. It really doesn't mean anything. I don't think Vandy can back it up. Why would you say that?
Well, why would you say that? I don't know. You don't have to be that assertive, that outlandish. But don't you think now that there's this, just to Justin's point, 9-3 SEC, we're in the tournament, and then it's survive and advance mentality where, we got to be better today. We don't have to be better, every day, but today we have to be better. I just wonder if that's some of what these kids see. That's what the fan bases love. That kept all the fan bases engaged last fall, supposedly, as we came down, the stretch. So I'm sure there's some of that thinking. And again, when you put these kids in front of mics over and over and over, and that's, I guess, we're in a soundbite society and a click society.
Well,
I guess
true.
It plays. We're talking about it. But, yeah, I don't know. I think, hey, humble, you're Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, right? Those guys, how they kind of handled it. But it's a soundbite society.
Yeah. Again, he's a competitive kid. I get all that. And you want confidence, but also I think you also want some humility. And hey, it's going to be a tough task. The SEC is the toughest conference in America. Listen, he's making the most out of his 15 minutes. He's getting and he's fun to watch. I love watching the kid play football. I just was surprised by his comments. All right, moving on from that. This is a behind. You work in the NIL and portal space, so there's probably no better person to ask this question to. But reports went out last night or yesterday that Florida State is paying Tommy Castellanos $800,000 for his one season in Tallahassee. So this is a kid that's got 31 turnovers and less than two full seasons starting at Boston College. He's going to make almost $1 million to be quarterback of a program that's trying to rebound. So how much does a guy like Carson Beck, or a guy that's has a winning reputation and is efficient in how he performs as a quarterback, what are those guys making? Because I don't know. I mean, you hear all the rumors, and I'm not an NIL. I'm kind of like with Justin on NIL, like he was about scheduling. I'm like that on NIL. I'm not going to follow what everybody makes. I could give a damn. But I think it's interesting because Tommy does not have a great track record coming into his final year of college football as far as turnovers are concerned. How much does a guy like Carson Beck or any of the other guys, Jackson Arnold, how much are those guys making if you had to guess? I know you don't know specifically on each one.
We could go and do a weekly NIL episode probably and not be able to cover all the nuance and what it is. But I'd say a starting quarterback in the P4, you're looking at $750 north. Okay, so let's start there. Not everybody's there, but that's a pretty good number to start with. If you're a starting quarterback in the P4, $750 and north, and there obviously are exceptions. A kid like Carson is going to be, 3 times what Tommy's making, 2 times what Tommy's making. And then I think ultimately there is no market. I mean, there is a more defined market at quarterback because those guys have, been in the market more often, and there's less of them. So you kind of have a defined market more than the other positions. But the truth is there is no market, and it's really every kid based on how, the need of the school at that time when they're in the portal, certainly the leverage that young man can create with other schools who are interested in the services and being able to drive that, so to speak. But I think Florida State's paying about what you'd pay for a starting quarterback. I guess the truth of the matter is it a good value for Florida State? It depends on if they overpaid for Tommy, and you don't really know that outside of what I told you in a general sense. But what was Tommy's market? I don't know. What were they competing against? And I think that's the trick when you're a GM now and you're trying to spread that money over the width of your roster, right? You're trying to weaponize your roster. The better you can do in navigating those kind of negotiations and keeping money on your side of the table while also getting a good deal. That's the trick now. So did they get a good deal with Tommy? That's about what a starting quarterback costs, Pat. His track record and some of the turnovers,
Yeah.
I guess they found enough value in him to pay him that, even with that track record.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was interesting. And, of course, Texas Tech continues to make their presence known on the recruiting front. They got the commitment of Ladarian Guyton, one of the top defensive ends in the country. Supposedly, he's going to make $900,000 as a freshman. And right now, if you believe the reports, it's got a $3.5 million NIL deal overall. Now, I don't know. Now, explain. I think a lot of people, when they see that, Shane, and listen, like I said, I'm not an NIL expert. I'm related to one, so I'll ask you. Explain that 3.5.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Stop right there. I just want to, for the record, I think we're recording right now. You just called me an expert.
An NIL and portal expert. Yes, that's what you do for a living.
All right. So next time we have this conversation, I'm just saying I want you to recall.
Yes. Listen, I'll give you credit when you deserve it, and I'm also going to. All right. So $3.5 million. Are these guys signing 4-year contracts, 5-year contracts? Is this more than likely, when you see the $900,000 sticker on the freshman year, if that's correct, is this more of a 3-year contract?
Yeah, I'd caution everybody. How much stock you put in the numbers, how much is really real. Every school wants to inflate the number because it sells in recruiting, right? So they're not going to refute any number that's put out there typically because it just helps them, puts air in their tires. But I'd caution it, and certainly the athlete is never going to dispute that because it just, other people think they're valued that way. So I think I'd caution people in this space to believe anything you read, hear, all those things. Multi-year contracts, they're coming. And some schools have been, again, this is how you attack the portal, and some don't, some do. And I think when you see teams that offer multi-year contracts, Pat, they're able to almost, set their budget, years out. You can forecast, so to speak. So I think it's very smart of some of these GMs who are attacking it with multi-year deals. Obviously, most of these contracts that are multi-year deals are going to be graded. So you're going to get paid less as a freshman and then a little more as a sophomore and a little more as a junior, so on and so forth. And the language now in these contracts we're seeing, there's some incentive-based type language that you're going to see going forward. But by and large, 1-year contracts are what's the norm. I think Texas Tech, by doing this, right, I think they are a little bit different. And then you might go to a kid at school A and say, we're going to pay you this much as a freshman. And we might be able to pay you this great number as a sophomore or a junior. Where if you're Texas Tech, if this is true and you're saying, listen, we're not going to sell you a pie in the sky, all right? You're going to make this for the first 3 years of your time here, and you got guaranteed money, so to speak. So if that's how they're doing business, then, yeah, they're probably different. But these contracts, everyone's unique. The Big Ten has a common contract that all schools are using. The other 3 conferences, every school we get through here, the contracts are all unique to themselves.
Yeah. All right. One, I do want to go behind and say, listen, I'm kind of reluctant to bring it up, but I do find it fascinating. And, I will probably either get an angry text from someone that covers Florida State or be ignored the next time I see them. And I don't necessarily want to tie this strictly to Florida State because I see it everywhere. We live in a world, as you said, a soundbite world, a video clip world, and we're seeing all these clips of these players practices, whether it's NFL or college, and whether college is releasing them or somebody's got a 5-minute window, they can go take video. We're getting all this analysis over highlight clips, right? And then these teams that have closed practices and these sites are pumping out these tweets. So we have intel, we have inside intel, even though we can't get into the practice. All right, so you've worked at multiple colleges: UCF, Florida State, Rutgers, Iowa State, Richmond, Elon. All right, so my first question is, who are these sources that these guys are getting information from? Like when I was covering Florida State, I got to go to practice, and I didn't care what anybody else said or saw. I cared what I said, and I only said what I saw. Right? So anyway. Who are these sources, and can they be trusted, and why can they be trusted, or why can they not be trusted?
All right, I'm talking as a coach, as you know. I come at my coaching.
You always talk as a coach. I understand that.
That's right. Ask my daughters. Here's what I think about it's state-run media. All right, back in the day, we had a beat writer that covered from the Orlando paper, the Jacksonville paper, so on and so forth. And they came and they would get access, and they'd go out and serve their subscription base. Now, what you have are On3, Rivals, those type of sites, and that's by and large who's covering these independent media sites are covering college football. And I think if they can go out there and try to put something out, right, that favors the school, that is a good for them, they feel like they'll get something on return. So when it comes to the recruiting process later on. So I think it's state-run media, and some of these guys are probably doing a good, scratching their back, being the propaganda machine for the school. And in return, they hope they get some type of tidbit to tweet out first in the recruiting process. I don't know. I think it's humorous again. But here we are doing a podcast about it. So that's just where it's gone.
Well, I just see it every day. So I'm like, and this is the first year the Florida State beat has not had. And listen, again, it's not just Florida State. This happens everywhere. It happens it happens in the NFL. It happens. I listened to something today about. I was watching another podcast, and they were talking about. And none of these guys live in Louisiana. They're all national guys, and they're talking about their sources telling that LSU hit it out of the park with their DB transfers. Now, this guy's, and again, this is not geared toward any one organization. It's just, I think it's interesting. And what we learned at Florida State last year, because we could not see them practice fully, we didn't get to see them scrimmage, right? We got to see them do what was live and what was live inside, or we got to see no tackle football. So we had an over exaggerated sense of who they were, even when we got to see it. Now, as it pertains to Florida State, no one that covers the team is seeing them practice, but we are getting this inside information. And listen,
I chalk it all up to clickbait. Again, I think people, they have a job to do, and it's the 24-hour news cycle. And if you're not tweeting and someone else is, again, I'm surprised. I'm just curious who consumes it. That's what I'm curious.
Right.
Like, what are you doing all day that you consume this?
You would be surprised. And like I said, we've already talked about practice reports before, and I don't even want to get into that. But I just find it interesting. And listen, obviously they're going to get whether it's happening at Florida State or other places. I guess my warning to people that take in this information is it's going to have the most glowing spin for that particular school. Like, they're not going to come in and say, hey, so-and-so just looked awful today.
Well, most guys who cover sports, in my 25 plus years of coaching and then being around the game as a young man following Dad's career, most guys who cover it are fans, and girls who cover the sports that they cover are fans first. And that's, honestly, and that's where it starts. You get very little expert analysis or whatever you want to call it. That's my take on it. And it's entertainment. It's an entertainment business. And I think guys try to entertain and,
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, if you're listening to the show, this was not a shot at anybody that covers Florida State. I want to make that clear.
No.
Because I will get some feedback. I've gotten feedback on things I've said in the past. So I don't want anybody to think this is just something I've known, because obviously if you cover sports, you have to live on Twitter to a certain extent to try to get information and all of that. I just see it every single day. All right, we're going to wrap this one up because you and I have an appointment on another show at 12:30 this afternoon. We do want to thank Justin Hokanson from AuburnSports.com and the On3 Network for joining us to talk about what he thinks Florida State is getting and new offensive coordinator Gus Malzahn and offensive line coach Herb Hand. And then, of course, we delve into a little bit on the 2025 Auburn Tigers and Hugh Freeze as he enters season number 3 on the Plains with a lot of pressure. Shane, any big plans for the weekend? I mean, your girls are getting ready to go back to school. Y'all taking them out to dinner or taking them away for the weekend? I mean, what's going on over there?
Maybe sleep in 1 or 2 more times. I don't know. No big plans. But if you want to find us next at 12:30, where can they find us, Patrick Burnham?
You can go to the J.P. Peterson Show on FanStream Sports. It will be carried live on his YouTube channel, also on Twitter. And he might have, I don't know, he might have connected the show to our channel. So you might be, I didn't ask him that. But JP we've joined his network. We're going to provide Florida State and college football content to FanStream Sports. So you can go to FanStream JP or FanStream Sports to find us. But we're going to hop on there at 12:30 and spend 30 minutes with JP.
Also, on the way out here, I'm not that anybody watches, but if you're watching, all right, I'm trying to change the background, keep it entertaining. Today's backdrop, NBC Sports. All right, the one before was ABC. I think that might have been a Florida State Miami game of the century. I don't know.
It was
I pulled all
ESPN.
these were all pulled off the fence from Doak Campbell when I was a kid. So I got NBC Sports behind us, but trying to give you guys.
Well,
I
I want to thank you for only your dedication to your backdrops is excellent. I also think you should be congratulated that you had no issues today logging in, getting set up, other than you like to be late. You got to get that straight. But
That's
anyway,
part of that whole 4 girls.
No technical issues. Your microphone was working, your camera was working, everything went smooth. All right, hey, we've had a great week. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We started with 2 legends, Mickey Andrews and Wally Burnham, talking about playing for Bear Bryant and coaching for Bobby Bowden. If you've not seen that podcast or listened to it, it is available on our YouTube channel, the Burnham Brothers College Football channel on YouTube. Please subscribe. You can also find us on Spotify if you're looking for the podcast version. But we had almost 2 hours with 2 legendary coaches, and it's been really, really well received by people. And we think you'll enjoy it, particularly if you're a old school Alabama or Florida State fan. Those guys, as I told you, Shane, when we got started that day, I'm not going to run out of questions. I've still got 2 more hours worth of questions I wrote down that I have for both of them. We just at the tip of the iceberg. Then Wednesday we had Charles Fishbein on to talk FSU recruiting, Miami recruiting, UCF, Florida recruiting, and also get his take on the Miami Hurricanes for 2025. So if you've not seen Wednesday's show, clearly you can go back to the Burnham Brothers College Football channel on YouTube or go to Spotify, and it's the Burnham Brothers College Football podcast channel. You can find us both there. And then, of course, we want to thank Justin again. And we'll be back next week. We're going to try to cover some other college football teams. If you're a Tallahassee person, we're probably going to delve into some high school football in Tallahassee, but it's football season 1 week closer. I think we're, 4 Saturdays away from the start of college football. So
yeah, I think we're 3 Saturdays. Again, final shout out, Home Instead Tally, Mowry Law Firm, and Ascension Sports. Thanks so much, fellas.
Yeah, and we will see you on Monday. Everyone have a great weekend, and thanks for joining us. But do remember to hit subscribe. It only takes 5 seconds.